Okay guys, in today's video, I wanted to see if we could not only build a very strong Void Hunter using the brand new aspect on the Prowl, but also see if we could utilize Bolt Charge without the use of Storm's Keep, and see if it could still hold up in in-game content, as well as be useful in PvP. With the help of Mothkeepers, I was able to find a way to consistently proc Bolt Charge while on a Void Hunter, and I paired the build with Monarque, which is also extremely strong this episode. This build gives me Predator vibes. Dodging will begin a hunt and highlight your target. You can either throw the loyal moths to hunt them down, or stalk them with your poison arrows. Passing through the cloud left behind lines up your next kill. It's very, very fun. So first, let's break down on the Prowl. This was designed to fulfill the bounty hunter fantasy, and when entering invisibility, marks a nearby combatant as a priority target for you and your team. Here is an example of a marked target. It will be highlighted in red and have this special marker until you make direct line of sight for a few seconds in PvE, but in PvP, it will just highlight the enemy player in red. Defeating this priority target creates a weakening cloud of smoke that makes you and your allies invisible when passing through it. After a successful hunt, you and nearby allies gain increased reload speed and stability for a short duration, as well as increased grenade, melee, and class ability energy. The buff from getting a successful hunt can actually stack up to 3 times, scaling the amount of ability energy you and your allies get back with each stack. This is really going to incentivize you to hunt the priority target multiple times in a row, granting you and your fire team that increased ability uptime. Now obviously there are a lot of different ways to go invisible. Things like Rat King can make you invisible after a kill, and there's a bunch of different aspects that all revolve around going invisible. One of those options is Stylish Executioner. However, I don't really like this option, and that's mainly for one reason, and that's True Sight. This ability also highlights targets and can even show them through walls, but that highlights every enemy, making it much more difficult to spot and hunt down the priority target. Since you get that mark in PvE, it can be a little easier to spot the priority target, but it doesn't last very long. And Stylish Executioner also requires killing a Void debuff target to proc. But the fastest and by far easiest way is to just use Vanishing Step. Simply dodging makes you invisible and can begin the hunt. Now it's no secret that Bolt Charge is very strong this season, and I wanted this build to not only utilize the strengths of Void, but also take advantage of some of that new arc power. I've done some pretty significant testing to see if other classes could benefit from Bolt Charge as a high damage option similar to the way Titans are using it. And I found that with the help of the artifact mod Dielectric and perks like Rolling Storm, other classes and even other subclasses can build Bolt Charge. The issue was finding a practical way to then proc the bolts once you've reached a full stack. See, Bolt Charge will build to ×10. Then, on your next instance of ability damage or unpowered melee, will discharge the stack into one large lightning strike. But ability doesn't just mean subclass abilities, like your melee or your grenade. It also means applying some type of elemental damage, i.e. unravel, shatter, or volatile explosions. The artifact mod Dielectric is really key here, as it helps build Bolt Charge by defeating arc debuff targets. But since we aren't running an arc subclass, and we can't rely on weapon perks like Rolling Storm, I had to find a different way to apply an arc debuff. And that's where Mothkeepers wraps and its exotic perk Winged Eclipse comes in. It reads that your grenade becomes a cage of loyal moths that release on impact and fly towards the nearest target or ally. If they reach a target, they detonate into a blinding explosion, and if they reach an ally, the moths grant your ally a Void Overshield. This grenade is so unique because it can be used both offensively and defensively. It completely overrides your grenade cooldown at a base of 73 seconds, but at tier 10 can drop to 38 seconds. By tossing one of these near an ally, or even yourself, these moths will turn into a Void Moth and grant you a small overshield. But when thrown near enemies, will then change into arc grenades. These apply blind, which is going to give us that arc debuff. It's also helping build Bolt Charge stacks, and being an ability will also proc the strike as well. Now we have a way to not only just protect ourselves or a teammate, but we also have an exploding moth grenade that can summon the power of Bolt Charge to deal way more damage than just your average grenade. Another way people have been doing crazy amounts of damage this season is with a very special setup and Monarque. Now, I love this bow. It has been my favorite bow since its release all the way back during Season of the Forge in the Black Armory.
Welcome to the Black Armory.
It pairs perfectly with this build. both in the theme of moth and butterflies, but the invisible hunter stalking its prey with poison arrows sounds really freaking cool. Its exotic perk is called Poison Arrows. Arrows fired quickly after a full draw become poison arrows. Precision hits with these poison arrows stun the combatant and spread poison to nearby ones. Now, a lot of people think in order to use this bow properly, you have to use the exotic Oathkeepers. However, that's not true at all. In order to consistently proc Monarch's poison arrows, it's all about timing. See, bows have this sweet spot where they are the most efficient. This is called a perfect draw. Each bow has some type of visual indicator that shows where you are on the scale of weakest shot to perfect to overdrawn. Most bows also have an audio change when loosing the perfectly drawn arrow, and Monarch's in particular is very satisfying. Now, using Monarch without the help of Storm's Keep will not produce the same massive amount of DPS, since Warlocks and Hunters have no way of passively building bolt charges. But you can still consistently proc the bolt charge strike by spreading volatile rounds. On top of easily spreading volatile, precision hits will spread poison. So if a target becomes volatile and then is killed by that poison, it will explode, continuing to spread volatile, making this a fantastic weapon for clearing groups of low-level adds with only 1 or 2 shots. I decided to pair Monarch with something that could help deal with things that were a little bit stronger and a little bit faster, or when I couldn't continuously proc the invis loop. And Tanisha's mastery with Chill Clip felt like the perfect fit. It hit a little harder with it being a rocket-assisted sidearm, and makes dealing with mini-bosses and champions no problem. If you hadn't had a chance to grind out Iron Banner to get one of these with Chill Clip, then a good fusion like Riptide or Scatter Signal would work as an alternative. As for the rest of the subclass, the super honestly depends on the scenario. I tend to gravitate more towards Deadfall because of the weaken, suppression, and orb generation. But if you want more of an aggressive option, then Spectral Blades did just get a pretty significant damage buff back in December with all the rest of the roaming super changes. The heavy attack from Spectral Blades is also another way to proc on the Prowl, so you take your pick. As for your abilities, these are all pretty straightforward. Melee, you only have the one option, and that's the Snare Bomb. These will disorient and weaken on detonation while doing damage over time. They're also a great tool in PvP because they ping enemy radar. Gambler's Dodge will give us our Snare Bomb back when dodging, but as for our grenade choice, it really does not matter, because Mothkeepers is going to override it anyway. The Fragments are really going to help create a lot of survivability for this build, leaning into things like Devour as well as Void Overshields. Starting with Echo of Persistence. This will increase the duration of all of our Void buffs, meaning longer invis, more overshields, and more healing from Devour. Next is Echo of Exchange. Melee final blows grant grenade energy. Echo of Harvest is going to create Orbs of Power and a Void Breach when defeating a weakened target. Echo of Starvation is going to give us Devour every time we pick up one of those orbs or one of those Void Breaches, and this is huge for survivability as Devour is going to give you a huge chunk of health and a boost to grenade energy each time it's procced. Lastly, you have Echo of Instability, giving our Void weapons volatile rounds when getting a grenade kill. Now for PvP, volatile rounds isn't as important, so Echo of Instability can be swapped out for Echo of Dilation to give you an increased sneak speed and enhanced radar, as well as the 10 mobility and intellect stats, which is a nice touch. There are a few more artifact mods that really synergize well here. Flashover will increase the damage of each bolt charge strike by 150%, and then you have Defibrillating Blast, which will automatically grant you max stacks of bolt charge when you stun a champion. It's also going to give you a small amount of health back each time you proc that bolt strike. But even with Arc putting up a strong showing in the artifact, there are a few really strong Void mods as well. Volatile Marksman will grant volatile rounds to any Void weapon after rapid precision hits. Boosted will grant class ability energy every time a Volatile Explosion procs. This is half the reason why you see videos out there of people solo one-phasing bosses. But you also have things like Maligned Harvest, which is going to create a weakening burst when you spread enough volatile, and then boosting this is going to give you an overshield every time you apply weaken. And finally, you have Void Flux, which will increase the size of the volatile explosion when defeating a weakened target. Now for stat distribution, I went heavily into Discipline in order to get that grenade recharge time as low as possible, as well as Resilience for the extra survivability and endgame content. Now mod-wise, for the armor, I chose to focus on grenade uptime as well as all the grenade benefits. Starting with the helmet, you have a heavy ammo finder and 2 ashes to assets, so we are creating orbs for anything our moths seek out and destroy. Arms have an impact induction, bolstering detonation, and a grenade kickstart, all boosting ability regen when using the moths and utilizing the armor charge system. Chest is where your resilience mods go. Now you could also put a charged up mod in here to increase the amount of armor charges we can hold at once, but that is optional. On the legs is one recuperation mod, one innervation mod to give us our grenade energy back when we pick up orbs, and a stacks on stacks mod which will give you more armor charges per orb pickup. Finally, on the class item you have 2 bomber mods and a powerful attraction mod to collect all the orbs when dodging. Fellas, if you haven't made a build that can tap into Bolt Charge yet, I highly suggest you give it a try. So many of these artifacts play right into it, and they won't be around forever. So use them while you still can, because I'm not sure how strong Arc's going to be without them. But that is it for this build. If I've missed anything, or if you guys have any suggestions on how to make this build even more potent, let me know in the comments below. If you found this video helpful in any way, do me a favor and drop a like, and then consider subscribing to see more content like this. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for coming and watching, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Wolf, out!